Sri Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga, glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Because today is the appearance day of Lord Vamana, we're chanting a verse from the 8th canto, 22nd chapter, text 2. Shri Balir. Oops, it disappeared. Uvacha Yadi Uttama Shloka Bhavan Mam Eritam Vacho Vyalikam Sura Varya Manyate Karomi Gibritam Tan Na Bhavet Pralambanam Padam Tritiyam Kuru Sirshni Me Nijam Shri Balir Vacha Yad Utama Shloka Bhavan Mameritam Vacho Vyalikam Suravarya Manyate Karom Yaritam Tan Nabhavet Pralambanam Padam Tritiyam Kurushirshni Me Nijam Shri Balir Vacha Yad Utama Shloka Bhavan Mameritam Vacho Vyalikam Suravarya Manyate Karom Yurtam Tano Bhavet Pralambanam Param Tritiyam Kurushirshni Me Nijam Shri Balir Vacha Yad Utama Shloka Bhavan Mameritam Vacho Vyalikam Suravarya Manyate Karom Yuritam Tana Bhavet Pralambanam Padam Tritiyam Kurushirshni Me Nijam. Okay, Sorry about the technical difficulty. Shri Bali Uvacha, Bali Maharaj said, Yadi, if Uttama Shloka, O Supreme Lord, Bhavan, your good self, Mama, my, Iritam, promised, Vachaha, words, Vyalikam, false, Suravarya, O greatest of all suras, demigods, Manyate, you think so, Karomi, I shall make it, Ritam, truth, Tat, that, promise, Na, not, Bhavet, will become, Pralambanam, cheating, Param, step, Tritiyam, the third, Kuru, just do it, Shirshni, on the head, May, my, Nijam, your lotus feet. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Translation. Bali Maharaj said, O best personality of Godhead, most worshipable for all the demigods, if you think that my promise has become false, I shall certainly rectify matters to make it truthful. I cannot allow my promise to be false. Please, therefore, place your third lotus footstep on my head. Purport. Bali Maharaj could understand the pretense of Lord Vamana, who had taken the side of the demigods and come before him as a beggar. Although the Lord's purpose was to cheat him, Bali Maharaj took pleasure in understanding how the Lord will cheat his devotee to glorify the devotee's position. It is said that God is good, and this is a fact. Whether he cheats or rewards, he is always good. Bali Maharaj therefore addressed him as Uttama Shloka. Your Lordship, he said, you are always praised with the best of selected verses. On behalf of the demigods, you disguised yourself to cheat me, saying that you wanted only 3 paces of land, but later you expanded your body to such an extent that with 2 footsteps you covered the entire universe. Because you were working on behalf of your devotees, you do not regard this as cheating. Never mind, I cannot be considered a devotee. Nonetheless, because although you are the husband of the goddess of fortune, you have come to me to beg, I must satisfy you to the best of my ability. So please do not think that I wanted to cheat you. I must fulfill my promise. I still have one possession, my body. When I place my body for your satisfaction, please put your third step on my head. Since the Lord had covered the entire universe with 2 steps, one might ask how Bali Maharaj's head could be sufficient for his third step. Bali Maharaj, however, thought that the possessor of wealth must be greater than the possession. Therefore, although the Lord had taken all his possessions, the head of Bali Maharaj, the possessor, would provide adequate place for the Lord's third step. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So, Bali Maharaj was the commander of the asuras, the demons. In this material world, there are always two kinds of living entities, the divine and the demoniac. And the divine living entities, they are trying to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And generally, those who are in the demoniac class, they want to deny the authority of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, there are constant struggles between the divine and the demoniac, between the devas, the demigods, and the asuras. And sometimes the asuras, they are in the dominant position, apparently, and sometimes the devas are in the dominant position. So there have been several occasions in which the asuras were able to seize control of practically the entire universe. At one point, Hiranyakashipu had done that. He was one of the great asuras. And his son, however, was Prahlad Maharaj, who, even though born in of the family of the asuras, actually the greatest asura of the time, became a pure devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna. And this Bali Maharaj was his grandson. Prahlad Maharaj had a son named Virochana, and Bali Maharaj was the son of Prahlad's son. So, apparently, it wasn't a disqualification to be the commander of the asuras, even if you were the grandson of a turncoat asura, Prahlad Maharaj, who had acted on behalf of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And we'll see Bali Maharaj himself kind of carried on in that tradition. But in all of these battles between the asuras and the demigods, the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself takes a role, because ultimately he says, Parichanaya sadhunam vanashya chadushkritam dharma samstapanartaya sambhavami yuge yuge. Krishna is always monitoring the entire situation. Some people in this world think there are big, dark conspiracies, and they develop a kind of cosmic paranoia. But the devotees of the Lord always realize that there is the supreme power of transcendental goodness that is ultimately in control. And he appears in this world for that purpose of delivering the devotees, destroying the demoniac, upholding the principles of religion. He does this again and again and again in different forms. So it's very important for the devotees to understand these different appearances of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and that's why we observe these appearance days of the various avatars, incarnations of the Lord. Janma karma chame divyam evam yoveti tyattvataha tvadeham punarjanma naiti mameti sarjana. That these appearances and activities of these avatars are transcendental, they're divine, and by hearing them and understanding them and acting upon them, the devotees of the Lord, they become qualified at the end of this life to join the Lord in his Nitya Leela, or eternal pastimes. So this history of Bali Maharaj goes back some time. He had at one point driven the demigods out of their residence in the heavenly planets. And that was because the demigods had created some offense against Durvasa Muni. And temporarily, Bali Maharaj and the demons, the asuras, were able to take control of practically the entire universe. So the mother of the demigods, Aditi, was very sad about that. She wanted her sons to be restored to their position. So her husband, Kashyapa, said, well, the only way that that's going to happen is somehow or other you're going to have to ask Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, to do something. So he engaged her in a sacrifice called the Payovrata sacrifice. And eventually the Lord agreed to appear as their son. And he did that. He appeared in just as in the case of Vasudeva and Devaki, when Krishna first appeared as their son, he appeared in forearm form, holding conch shell, lotus, club, and chakra, and then transformed himself into an ordinary child. So it's the same case with Aditi and Kashyapa. He appeared as their son first in his forearm Vishnu form, and then transformed himself into a dwarf Brahman. And a big celebration was later held for him. All the demigods came, and afterwards this dwarf Brahman, Vamana, that was the name for a dwarf, Vamana. So he's a dwarf Brahman boy, and in that form he went to the assembly of Bali Maharaj, and he had this plan, as mentioned in today's verse. he had this plan to take all the conquest, in other words, the universe that Bali Maharaj had conquered, and give it back to the demigods, give it back to the sons of Aditi. So to do that, he had presented himself as a Brahmin. The Kshatriyas, Bali Maharaj was a Kshatriya, they're supposed to give in charity to the demigod. So he appeared as this beautiful dwarf Brahmin boy, all properly decked out in Brahminical brahmachari attire, and very pleasantly requested Bali Maharaj, give me just 3 paces of land. Of course, Bali Maharaj had asked him, what can I do for you, my dear brahmachari Brahmin boy? And he said, well, I don't want very much. I would just like 3 paces of land. And Bali Maharaj said, well, I could give you much more than that. Seems like very foolish of you just to request 3 paces of land. And he said, Vamana replied to him, no, if a person isn't satisfied with whatever little bit, Krishna provides, God provides, then he won't be satisfied with anything. So many great kings have conquered huge kingdoms, even up to the 3 worlds, and they're not satisfied. So, this is a quality of a Brahmin, to be satisfied with whatever is provided to the Brahmin. And also, Vaman Dev was kind of flattering Bali Maharaj. You come from such a great line of powerful kings and powerful warriors like Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu. He said, like Hiranyaksha, of course, he got killed by Varaha, but he put up a good fight. That's why Varaha became glorified. If he'd just been some insignificant person, then what's the big deal of defeating him? But Varaha is honored because he triumphed over Hiranyaksha, who was such a great warrior and strong fighter, and then there was Hiranyakashipu. Of course, Lord Nrsingadev killed him, but he put up a good fight too. He was very, he wanted revenge because Vishnu had killed his brother Hiranyaksha. So he was looking everywhere for Vishnu, but he couldn't find him. He kept chasing him all over the universe. And then Vaman said, finally, to get away from Hiranyakashipu, Vishnu decided to enter within his heart and hide there. So Vaman described how Hiranyakashipu kept running around the universe screaming, where is this Vishnu? Where is he? Finally, Vishnu played a trick on him, but he was another great predecessor of yours. So in that way, in different ways, Vaman Dev convinced Bali Maharaj to grant his request for 3 paces of land. Of course, Bali Maharaj had a spiritual master, Shukracharya. And Shukracharya was not a pure devotee guru. He was more or less a family priest of Bali Maharaj. And it's stated in the Srimad Bhagavatam that generally a Brahmin does not like to take the position of priest, because then you become obliged to the person or family you're being a priest for. You're maintained by them. So Shukracharya, we could say, was sort of motivated. He was worried. Okay, now Bali Maharaj has made this promise to this Brahmin boy who is actually Vishnu in disguise, and Vishnu's actually cheating him and is going to take everything away from him, and then he won't have any money, he won't have any wealth, and I'm depending upon him to be giving me dakshin, for the sacrifices and different performances I do for him. So how are things going to go on? But he presented it to his disciple, Bali Maharaj, that he would, he should understand that, okay, you've made this promise. Bali Maharaj was telling Shukracharya, but I promised him. He's a Brahmin, I promised him. How can I go back on my promise? And Shukracharya said, did you say Om when you made this promise? Because if you didn't, it's not an actual truthful promise, and you can break it. And he gave him other examples where in Shastra it's stated that it's okay to lie in certain circumstances, like to save the life of somebody, to protect yourself, you can tell a lie. But Bali Maharaj wouldn't have it. And he actually understood it was Vishnu coming before him. Srila Prabhupada explains in one purport that it was sort of like a joke, because Bali Maharaj told Shukracharya, okay, he's coming to me in disguise, I know it, but it's just all the more reason for me to give what I promised to give him. So he stuck with his promise, and that's why he's considered such a great devotee of the Lord, that he was willing to give everything to Krishna. Krishna is sometimes called by the name Hari, and Hari means one who takes everything away, one who takes. There's one verse from that explains Harishe Tad Danam Chanai. If I'm merciful to someone, I take away gradually all their opulences. So Bali Maharaj was prepared to give everything to Lord Vishnu, Lord Krishna, in the form of Vamana. So Vamana began to take the 3 steps. So in his first step, he expanded himself into his universal form. There are many descriptions of universal forms in the Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita. There's the universal form that Krishna displayed to Arjuna. There's the universal form Krishna displayed to Yashoda. And here, Vamana is displaying his universal form to Bali Maharaj and his associates. So in his first step, he expands himself over the 3 planetary systems. And with his second step, he penetrated the higher material planets, and his toe actually broke through the shells of the universe, allowing some of the causal ocean to flow into this universe as in the form of the river Ganges. So, so with 2 steps, he had taken everything, and therefore Bali Maharaj wasn't able to fulfill his promise. He couldn't fulfill his promise. So Krishna arrested him. He was, and then his followers became very angry that he'd been arrested, and they, although Bali Maharaj was telling him, no, don't do anything, they attacked, and they were driven by the demigods down into the lower planetary systems. Then Bali Maharaj said to Vamana, okay, I wasn't able to fulfill my promise, therefore you've arrested me, but actually there is a place where you can put your 3rd step, and that is upon my head. So that was, the topic of today's verse that we recited. So he considered that if I was the possessor of all of these things, then my body will be an adequate place for the Lord to place his 3rd step. And that was done. Prahlad Maharaj and Bali's wife, Vindhyavali, made a petition to Lord Vishnu, and Vishnu agreed that he would protect Bali Maharaj, gave him a place in one of the subterranean heavenly planets, Sutala, and agreed to stay with him there and protect him, be his doorman, basically. So we just see the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and his sublime relationships with his devotees, even if born in the families of the asuras, and even if they act for the benefit of the asuras at times, they can still become great devotees of the Lord. Many of us were not born in devotee families, but we've surrendered our lives to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Srila Vamana ki jai. Any further glorification of Lord Vamana? Yes.
Of the soul, because all souls are constitutionally devotees of Krishna.
Yeah, Jivara Swarupahoy Krishnara Nityadas, the eternal constitutional position of every soul is servant of Krishna. That is the identity. But some souls are at the present moment acting in another way. They're acting not for the pleasure of Krishna, but for their own independent, selfish pleasure. And that can be done in two ways. One, in which one acts to satisfy one's material desires, but does it in such a way that's allowed by Krishna. And that is purifying and takes one back towards the goal of entering the eternal association of the Lord in the spiritual world. But there's another type of person, another type of soul in this material world who acts to satisfy their own pleasure in a way that goes against the directions of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And they either try to deny the existence of the Supreme Lord, or they act in hostility towards the Supreme Lord. And their path takes them in another direction. But at any point, they can turn and either by Krishna's mercy or by the mercy of a devotee, they can turn as Bali Maharaj did, or Prahlad Maharaj did, or so many other asuras have done. So ultimately, everyone is Mamaivam so jiva loke, jiva bhuta sanatana, Krishna says in the Gita. Everyone is part of me. All souls, they're part of me. But some of them are forgetful of that, and others are trying to remember it. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
On the seashore. So I wrote him letter, my dear master, your other disciples, brahmachari, sannyasi, they are rendering you direct service, and I am a householder. I cannot live with you. I cannot serve you nicely. So I do not know how can I serve. Simply an idea, I was thinking of serving him. How can I serve him seriously? So the reply was dated 13 December 1936. In that letter, he wrote, "My dear such and such, I am very glad to receive your letter. I think you should try to push our movement in English." That was he is writing, and that will good to you and to the people who will help you. And that was his instruction. And then in 1936, on the 31st December, that means just after writing this letter, a fortnight before his departure, he passed away. But I took that order of my spiritual master very seriously. But I did not think that I'll have to do such and such thing. I was at that time a householder. But this is the arrangement of Krishna. If we strictly try to serve spiritual master, his order, then Krishna will give us all facilities. That is the secret. Although there was no possibility, I never thought, but I took it little seriously by studying a commentary by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur on the Bhagavad Gita. In the Bhagavad Gita, the verse Bhavashatmika buddhi rekiha kurunandana, in connection with that verse, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur gives his commentary that we should take up the words from the spiritual master as our life and soul. We should try to carry out the instruction, the specific instruction of the spiritual master very rigidly, without caring for our personal benefit or loss. So, I tried a little bit in that spirit. So he has given me all facilities to serve him. Things have come to this stage that in this old age I have come to your country and you are also taking this movement seriously, trying to understand it. We have got some books now, so there is little foothold of this movement. Now on this occasion of my spiritual master's departure, as I am trying to execute his will, similarly I shall also request you to execute the same order through my will. I am an old man, I can also pass away at any moment. That is nature's law, nobody can check it. So that is not very astonishing. But my appeal to you on this auspicious day, the departure of my Guru Maharaj, that at least to some extent you have understood the essence of Krishna consciousness movement, you should try to push it on. People are suffering for want of this consciousness. As we daily pray about devotees, Vancha kalpatarubhascha kripa sindubhaiva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namo. A Vaishnava or devotee of Lord, his life is dedicated for the benefit of the people. You know, most of you belong to Christian community, how Lord Jesus Christ, he says that for your sinful activities, he has sacrificed himself. That is the determination of devotee of the Lord. They don't care for personal comforts because they love Krishna or God. Therefore they love all living entities because all living entities are in relationship with Krishna. So, similarly, you should learn. This Krishna consciousness movement means to become Vaishnava and feel for the suffering humanity. So to feel for the suffering humanity, there are different angles of vision. Somebody is thinking of the suffering of the humanity from bodily conception of life. Somebody is trying to open hospital to give a relief to the diseased condition. Somebody is trying to distribute foodstuff in poverty-stricken countries or places. These things are certainly very nice, but actual suffering of the humanity is due to lack of Krishna consciousness. These bodily sufferings, they are temporary, neither they can be checked by the laws of nature. Suppose if you give some distribution of foodstuff in some poverty-stricken country, that does not mean that this help makes solution of the whole problem. The real beneficial work is to invoke every person to Krishna consciousness. As soon as he comes to Krishna consciousness, the same example as I have given several times, that a rich man's son is loitering in the street, forgetting his father's opulence and property, and somebody out of sympathy giving him some food. But other person comes to him and says, "Oh, my dear boy, I know you, you are the son of such and such rich man. Why you are loitering in the street? Come on, I shall take you to your father." So, that gentleman takes that loitering boy to his father. The father is glad, and the boy inherits his father's property, and his whole problem of life becomes solved. This is a crude example. Similarly, all living entities, they are loitering within this universe in different bodies, in different planets, and from time immemorial, without knowing that he belongs to the kingdom of God. He is the direct son of Krishna and God. If Krishna is the proprietor of everything, and he can enjoy his father's property, and these problems of material condition life automatically solved. Just like if you become a rich man, if you can possess millions of dollars, then your poverty is automatically solved. Similarly, if you become Krishna conscious, if you act in that way, then all other problems in the material condition of life solve. So this is such a nice moment. Aham tang sarva papibha mokkhaishami ma suchi. The Bhagavad Gita says, the Lord says, people's sufferings are due to his sinful activities. Ignorance. Ignorance is the cause of sinful activity. Just like a man does not know. Suppose a foreigner like me comes in America and he does not know, because in India, just like in your country, the car is driven from the right side. In India, I have seen in London also, the car is driven from the left side. So suppose he does not know, he drives the car on the left side and incurs some accident, and he is taken by the police custody, and if he says, "Sir, I did not know that here the car is driven from the right side," that does not make him excused. The law will punish him. So ignorance is the cause of breaking the law or sinful activities. And as soon as you commit some sinful activity, you have to suffer the result. So, the whole world is in ignorance, and due to ignorance is complicated in so many actions and reactions, either good or bad. There is nothing good within this material world, everything is bad. So, we have manufactured something good and something bad. Here, because in the Bhagavad Gita we understand, this place is dukkhalayam asasat. This place is for misery. So how you can say, in miserable condition, how you can say that this is good or this is bad? Everything is bad. Those persons who do not know the material condition and life, they manufacture something, this is good, this is bad, because they do not know everything here is bad, nothing good. One should be very much pessimistic of this material world, then he can make advance in spiritual life. Dukkhalayam asas. This place is full of miseries, and if you study analytically, you will find simply miserable condition. Therefore, the whole problem is that we should give up our material condition and life, and in Krishna consciousness we should try to elevate ourselves to the spiritual platform and thereby be promoted to the kingdom of Godhead. Jadgatyana nivartanti tadhyamam paramam. We are going, nobody comes back to this miserable world, and that is the supreme abode of the Lord. So there are descriptions in the Bhagavad Gita. So this Krishna consciousness movement is authorized, very important. Now, you American boys and girls who have taken to this movement, please take it more seriously, and that is the mission of Lord Chaitanya and my Guru Maharaj, and we are also trying to execute the will by disciplic succession. You have come forward to help me. I shall request you all that I shall go away, but you shall leave. Don't give up pushing on this movement, and you will be blessed by Lord Chaitanya and His divine grace, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhu. Thank you very much. Samsaradava nanadira loka tranaya karanya ghana ghanatyam samsaradava nanadira loka tranaya karanya Akasha kalyana gunarnavasya mandi gurasi charanarvindam Akasha kalyana gunarnavasya mandi gurasi charanarvindam Mahaprabhu Kirtananita Gita Paritramadhyam Manasurasena Mahaprabhu Kirtananita Gita Paritramadhyam Manasurasena Romanchakam Vasutaranga Bhaju
परम करुणा बहुदुई जन परम करुणा बहुदुई जन परम करुणा बहुदुई जन निताई गौरचंद्र परम करुणा परम करुणा बहुदुई जन निताई गौरचंद्र परम करुणा बहुदुई जन निताई गौरचंद्र सब अवतार सारसी रमणी केवल आनंद कंदा परम करुणा बहुदुई जन निताई गौरचंद्र सब अवतार Sarashiramani Kevalananda Kanda Avatarer Shiramani Sabe Avatarer Shiramani Nitai Gaura Chandra Yaman Sabe Avatarer Shiramani Nitai Gaura Chandra Yaman Sabe Avatarer Shiramani Parahama Karna Pahuday Jana Nitai Gaura Chandra Adi Sabhaya Avatar Sarashiramani Kevalayananda Kanda Bhaja Bhaja Bhai Chaitanya Nitai Sudhira Visasakani Bhaja Bhaja Bhai Chaitanya Nitai Sudhira Visasakari Vishaya Chariya विषय छरिया तेरा से मजिया मुखे बोलो हरि हरि विषय छरिया तेरा से मजिया मुखे बोलो हरि हरि परम करुणा पहुँचई जन निताई गौरचंद्र अरे सावयावता सारसिरमणि केवलानंद कंदा अरे सावयावता सारसिरमणि केवलानंद कंदा परम करुणा पहुँचई जन निताई गौरचंद्र finish. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare.
Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare,
Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Govinda Jaya Jaya Gopal Jaya Jaya Radha Ramana Hari Govinda Jaya Jaya Govinda Jaya Jaya Gopal Jaya Jaya Radha Ramana Hari Govinda Jaya Jaya Gopal Jaya Jaya Radha Ramana Hari Govinda Jaya Jaya Govinda Jaya Jaya Gopal Jaya Jaya Radha Ramana Hari Govinda Jaya Jaya Gopal Jaya Jaya Radha Ramana Hari Govinda Jaya Jaya Govinda Jaya Jaya Gopal Jaya Jaya Radha Ramana Hari Govinda Jaya Govinda Jaya Jaya Gopal Jaya Jaya Radha Ramana Hari Govinda Jaya Jaya Govinda Jaya Jaya Gopal Jaya Jaya Govinda Jaya Jaya Gopal Jaya Jaya Govinda Jaya Jaya Gopal Jaya Jaya Radha Ramana Hari Govinda Govinda Jaya Jaya Gopal Jaya Jaya Radha Ramana Hari Govinda Jaya Jaya Govinda Jaya Jaya Gopal Jaya Jaya Radha Ramana Hari Govinda Govinda Jaya Jaya Gopal Jaya Jaya Radha Ramana Hari Govinda Jaya Jaya Govinda Jaya Jaya Gopal Jaya Jaya Radha Ramana Hari Govinda Govinda Jaya Jaya Gopal Jaya Jaya Radha Ramana Hari Govinda Jaya Jaya Govinda Jaya Jaya Gopal Jaya Jaya Radha Ramana Hari Govinda Govinda Jaya Jaya Gopal Jaya Jaya Radha Ramana Hari Govinda Jaya Jaya Govinda Jaya Jaya Gopal Jaya Jaya Govinda Jaya Jaya Gopal Jaya Jaya Govinda Jaya Jaya Gopal Jaya Jaya Radha Ramana Hari Govinda Govinda Jaya Jaya Gopal Jaya Jaya Radha Ramana Hari Govinda Jaya Jaya Govinda Jaya Jaya Gopal Jaya Jaya Radha Ramana Hari Govinda Jaya Govinda Jaya Jaya Gopal Jaya Jaya Radha Ramana Hari Govinda Jaya Jaya Govinda Jaya Jaya Gopal Jaya Jaya Radha Ramana Hari Govinda Jaya Govinda Jaya Jaya Gopal Jaya Jaya Radha Ramana Hari Govinda Jaya Jaya Govinda Jaya Jaya Gopal Jaya Jaya जय जय राधा रमण हरि गोविंद जय जय गोविंद जय जय गोपाल जय जय गोविंद जय जय गोपाल जय जय गोविंद जय जय गोपाल जय जय राधा रमण हरि गोविंद जय जय गोविंद जय जय गोपाल 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 जय जय राधा रमण हरि गोविंद जय जय गोविंद जय जय गोपाल जय जय गोविंद जय जय गोपाल जय जय राधा रमण हरि गोविंद जय जय गोविंद जय जय गोपाल जय जय गोविंद जय जय गोपाल जय जय राधा रमण हरि गोविंद जय गोविंद जय जय गोपाल जय जय